Today I'm going to go over how to do a CSV file for your ingredients for the SCPN UK Cosmetics portal. This now includes putting your allergens in that information for the portal. Much like you put them on the end of your ingredients list on your label, you now have to put them on the end of your ingredients list for the portal with the exact percentage that those allergens are present. So to calculate the allergens for your product, it's a bit of a pain. It takes a bit of a while, especially if you've got a lot. Say if you're using essential oils and you might have a few in the same product, you will have to do quite a few calculations. So I'm going to show you what you need to do. So first of all, let's say we've got bergamot essential oil, and this is the percentage that we're using it at in our product. First thing you need to do is to go and find the allergen document for the specific essential oil that you're using. And then in that allergen document, see which of the 26 UK allergens, if we come over here, it's these 26, are listed with a percentage next to them. Once you find those, make a note of what that percentage is. So I've already done this here in a different table. So I've looked for bergamot, I've got the allergen document, and I've seen that in bergamot essential oil, I have 1.5% concentration of citral, 0.03% citronellol, etc. Now I've got these numbers. What I need to do is go over to my allergen calculator. If you haven't got one or can't find one anywhere, then I do have one on my website. I'll link that below. Simply find the allergen here, and then next to it put the amount. So in this case 1.5 for citral, citronellol 0.03, and then limonene 45 and linalool 15. Remember, these are the percentage concentrations of those compounds, those allergens, in the neat fragrance oil. So what you're doing now is calculating it out to find out what percentage is in your final product. So to do that, we need to use our CPSR and see that bergamot, the percent we use it at in our product, is 1.7391, and you put that in here, in this box here. That's the formula usage rate. And then that will calculate these out into these boxes, and it will also show you here, on my calculator at least, which needs notifying on your label for either leave on or rinse off, depending on the percentage. So if you've got a soap, you'll be looking at the rinse off column. If you've got, say, a body butter or something, you'll be looking at the leave on column. Now, whereas before you'd just go, okay, well, I need to list these, and then you'd note the names of the ones you need to list and you'd put those on your label. Now we need to look at these numbers here. So I'm going to rearrange all of this again. It helps to have a million screens when you're doing this kind of thing. So let's do this. Now, citral, next to this, now I need to find the number in the green, and that is 0.026. Citronellol is 0.001. Linalool 0.783. Sorry, limonene, and linalool is 0.261. So those are your final numbers for bergamot of the percentage that's in your formulation. Now, if this was a rinse off or leave on product, you would be listing all of them. If it was a rinse off product, you wouldn't be listing citronellol. But of course, if you've got other essential oils that also have that in it, you're going to need to add them together later, so it may be that you do still need to list it. So next we get rid of these and we do sweet orange. Let's just find the usage rate, 5543, 0.5543. There we go. So that's in there ready, and now we need citral 5, limonene 97, linalool 5. There we go, and again click out so it calculates, and then you just need to note down the numbers in the green. So we've got 0.028, remember that these will be different. Even if you've got the same essential oil, it will be different per product because it's all based on your usage rate, and that's what gives you these numbers. So 0.538 and 0.028 again. Right, I'll calculate these and then we'll come back. Okay, so we finished calculating lavender as well. So we got all of our percent of those allergens in our final formulation, but we can see we've got doubles. So we've got limonene is in all three, linalool's in all three, etc. So any doubles you need to add together and then just make a list of everything that applies to your product. So because I'm going to say that this is a rinse off, a leave on product rather, I'm going to include the 0.001 because that would be included for a leave on product. If this was a rinse off product, you'd get rid of coumarin, geraniol and citronellol because a rinse off product is 0.01%. So these are your final allergens and these are your final percentages. They are different from what you'll see in the table next, purely because I've done two different things, but the same principle applies for where you put the allergens and how you deal with them in the CSV. So let's go and do that next. Now this is a little fake CPSR table that I've created. This is basically what you'll see. You'll have a table with your ingredients, all your formulation and the INCI names, and then the maximum concentration that they're present in your product. Now we need to take this information and put it into a CSV file. To create a CSV file, you simply open Excel or similar and just start a spreadsheet. Now you can get these headings, you can type them in yourself, or I suggest when you go on the portal, go through your submission, and when you get to the point where it asks for your ingredients in CSV file format, click on either exact or percent ranges depending on what you're doing, and then it will give you a link to download the template. I suggest downloading the template because often, unless you do that, it won't accept it for whatever reason. So download that, it will give you these headings and you'll have this spreadsheet to work in. So what you need to do next is get your ingredients from here. You want the INCI name. So copy these in the same order into this column here where it says ingredient name. Then the max percentage column, copy those exactly as they are next to the correct ingredient into the maximum percentage column. This example I'm doing is for percent ranges. If you're just doing exact, you download the exact template and just put everything in the exact column, and that's pretty much all you have to do. However, if you're doing ranges, you'll need to do some additional sums. The reason you do ranges is if you're using a base product, such as a Stevenson's Melt and Pour soap, which is always given in percent ranges because obviously they don't want to give their formula. So you can never know the exact percentage of each ingredient within that base. Therefore, you'd have to do a range for your whole product. What we've done is we've got our ingredients, we've got our max percent. We now need to work out the minimum. So to do that, if you just highlight all of these and go sort of a couple of cells below, and then if I expand this out, you should get that sum symbol there. Click on that and it will total all those up for you. Once you've done that, just pick any column, it doesn't matter which one at the moment, we'll go over here, and we need to calculate the minimum for each of these ingredients. So to do this, we do equals the maximum divided by the total that you just calculated multiplied by 100 and enter, and you'll see that gives you a number which is less than the maximum, and that will be your minimum. If you're using an NCI spec sheet for a base like I mentioned, that will usually have a minimum, so use whatever minimum they give you and then calculate the minimum for the rest of your ingredients and not those ones. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, since we're calculating for everything, we need to do this for each row. A quick way to do that is to go back into this calculation, go back up to the sum, and in the second cell here, just between the letter and the number, put a $sign and then just click enter. And then if we take the little square in the corner there, we can drag it all the way down to the bottom, let go, and it's calculated all of them using the same formula on their rows. And that is your minimum. Now we need to put them in the right column. So if you highlight them all, right click, copy, go to minimum column, then click on paste special, then values, because you don't want to be bringing the formula over, you just want to be bringing the values, like that. And then just press escape because we want to unhighlight that. Now these are quite big numbers, so we want to sort of take them down a few decimal places. So just use this up here to do that, and then 4 is probably more than enough for that. And you'll see the numbers change slightly because it rounds them up. Then come here and you want to delete out all of that and delete this out, because if you have any formulas left it won't upload to the portal properly. You just want the numbers. So there you have your minimum and your maximum that is potentially in your product of each of those ingredients. The next thing we have to do is consider the NPIS. This is the National Poisons Information Service, and certain ingredients need reporting to them if they're in your product over a certain concentration. One of those ingredients is essential oils, and you can see in this formulation we have 3 of those. So we need to put these numbers into the exact column. So we'll get rid of, in fact we only need to do these 2 because the concentration that you need to notify them at is 0.5%, and you can see those aren't over 0.5, so it's just these 2 that we have to notify. So we'll delete these out because we don't need a minimum if we're doing an exact column. Move those ones over to exact, and then in this column where it asks about the NPIS, you type true, and you do that for each one. Everything else in here that doesn't need reporting to them would be false. And you can again just use the corner to drag that down and copy that down. Put that there. And there you go. Finally, we need to add all those lovely allergens we just calculated. So you need to add all of these in. So we'll do that. Once they're added, we need to add the percentages. Now, I'm going to copy and paste these into the exact column. There doesn't seem to be any direct information as to what column they would go in if you're doing a concentration range. I would assume, as logic would dictate, that because they're allergens, they would want to be in the exact column because that is the exact percentage they're in your product. And therefore, regardless of whether they exist over a certain percentage, I would put true here. The other reason for that is because when you do a concentration range here, it won't let you upload the template unless this word here corresponds with what you've done over here. So if I was to do a range for these and then put true, it wouldn't let me upload it. It would identify, because it was true, it should be exact. So therefore, if I'm putting these in the exact column, I need to be writing true in these cells here. My thought process on these things is, if you're not sure, be overly cautious, because it's better to give more information than give too little. So you can make your own decision about that, but that's how I do this. That's how I'd go about doing this CSV file. If you have any questions or any advice, or you do it differently, then pop a comment below and we can chat about it. I just want to try and help you out because this is a bit of a mind-bending topic. Anyway, this is your CSV file. This is finished. You need to do this for every single product that you upload to the portal. Now you just want to save it. So go to Save As and CSV, delimited file, and then it's ready to upload to the portal. I hope this has helped. Any questions, like I say, drop them below, and I hope I haven't confused you anymore. Good luck.